Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on yet another interview spotlight with our small business owners here with ChiBizHub. Kendra and I are really excited to join you today because we are spotlighting Back of the Yards Coffee House. And I know it is not lost on anyone how incredible this coffee house is and why it's so remarkable in the southwest side of Chicago. And so we're here interviewing Jesse to learn a little bit more about, his journey and that of his partners, a business partner, opening up the coffee house and what that looks like and what it looks like to be a small business owner during this time, right? Like we're still in COVID, we're still in a pandemic, and they're still out there, trying to hustle and thrive. And we're really excited to learn more about, your story and share it with the audience. So to kick us off, I want to make sure, Jesse, can you start us off with sharing your entrepreneurial journey, that of your business partners as well, and what has influenced you to open Back of the Yards Coffee?
Sure. I think my journey with coffee really started at home. We drank coffee pretty much every day since I was a kid. It wasn't the best quality coffee, unfortunately, but, we drank what we had access to, right? And we really didn't think much of it. It wasn't until my freshman year of college that I stepped foot into the first coffee shop that I had ever gone to. And I didn't know these things existed, outside of the TV or in a show or something, right? But I had never been to a coffee shop. And I remember thinking when I stepped foot in that place, I'm like, wow, why don't we have something like this in my neighborhood? I was born and raised in Back of the Yards, and I never experienced the coffee shop experience, right? And so that was the initial kind of step towards the business, right? And fast forward in 2008, actually, let me go back. In 2003, I started working for a coffee shop because I walked in there and I told the owner, like, I want to be your competition. And and so he chuckled and he's like, you know what? Let me show you the ropes. And sure enough, he did. I ended up managing the place. And when it shut down, I was looking, I still wanted to stay in business, still in coffee. And in 2008, I ended up opening up my first coffee shop in the Tri-Taylor area. But as you can remember what happened in 2008, it wasn't the best time for a business to get started. Made a lot of mistakes, learned from those mistakes, and I said, never again, I'm done. But then you fast forward, Myra and I both were, I was unemployed, she was underemployed, and we were just tired of kind of, just going through the motions and really not feeling like we were doing what we wanted to do, right? Both of us were doing what our passion was, which was community work, but that community work that we were doing we were essentially doing it for free, right? Because we volunteered, we did a lot of work in Back of the Yards. But then, she told me, like, well, why don't you go back into coffee, since, you had a coffee shop before. And I was like, no, not again. But, she planted that seed in my head. And once, I started thinking about it, and in that same conversation, she had asked me about cold brew because she was spending a lot of money going to, some of the fast food coffee chains, getting iced coffee. And I introduced her to cold brew and said, look, this is a different way of making iced coffee. It tastes so much better. And, we had a big conversation about that. So the same time that I went home thinking about, well, could I get into the coffee industry again? She went home and she started experimenting with cold brew. A couple of days later, when she made a good batch, she said, Jesse, come over. I want you to try this, and I have a surprise for you. So I showed up. The coffee that she made was amazing. It was one of the best cold brews I have ever had. And so that kind of, I'm like, all right, I think this is a sign. And we just kept doing research. I started writing the business plan, and we looked at the financials and said, what do we have to do in order to make this a reality? But also, we didn't just want to do another coffee shop. We wanted to make a coffee company with a mission, right? We wanted to do something different. We wanted to make sure that we combine our passion for community and our passion for coffee. And that's how Back of the Yards Coffee Company was born.
Wow, that is an amazing journey. And the tenacity and the determination that you just shared with, you know, having a business and it didn't work out, but continuing to look at different ways to move forward. So we applaud you on that.
Thank you.
I know that this month will actually be, and we're starting, so it's September 1st, and it's Hispanic Heritage Month. So really would like for you to share with us your relationship with your culture and how important that is to you. And not only that, but how is it that you can just share with us about the relationship with your culture and how it's really shaped your entrepreneur journey in starting these coffee shops?
Sure. For me personally, I think, my father, rest in peace, had an entrepreneurship spirit. He always wanted to do something different, something else. And I think he was very frustrated throughout life not being able to do that. But I mean, he did do things that allowed me to get to this place, of entrepreneurship in the first place. One of those things was, I mean, coming from Guadalajara, with a family of his wife, my mother, and 6 children, and, coming to Chicago in the winter of 78, 79, when the blizzard hit, drastic changes, to me, it takes tenacity to do that. Right. And so, kind of, I always said immigrants have an entrepreneurial spirit because, just the fact that they would make that move from, a comfortable place to a place where they didn't know too many people, didn't know, the language, they know English, even though, Spanish is spoken a lot here, especially in Chicago. It definitely was something challenging for them to do. So I think that kind of put that entrepreneurship spirit in me. But also even one of the, with coffee, we I grew up around coffee, as I mentioned earlier, and the irony is that, coffee on this side of the hemisphere, at least, it grows only in Latin America, from Mexico to the north, all the way south to Brazil. And so one of those things for us that we found quickly was, although like the majority of people in coffee are either Latin American, African, or Asian because of the farms and the sheer number of people that they employ, the majority of the money is in Europe and the United States, where the coffee is consumed. Farmers only get between 5 to 15% of total profits. So the people of color within the coffee industry are not necessarily getting, compensated for it, right? And so when you come to the U.S. In particular, most of the folks, most of the owners, or those people with positions of power or decision-making power, are not women, are not Latinx, are not African American, right? And so that's something that we're trying to change, and we're trying to get more folks from our community into the coffee industry, right? And we're doing that because I wholeheartedly believe that the reason for this is not necessarily that folks in the coffee industry are racist, because I think most of the people within the coffee industry, at least from my experience, are people who genuinely do care, right? And they have done a good job of investing in a place of origin of coffee, right, like wherever it's grown. But oftentimes, they don't have the experience of living here in communities like Back of the Yards, right? So they don't know these communities that are around them, right? And so the entry point into the coffee industry is always the coffee shop, right? And so depending on where that coffee shop is located, those are the employees that are going to work there and then move on, right? And so for us, opening up in Back of the Yards was very important because Back of the Yards in particular, it's a majority Black and brown community, right? And specifically Mexican and Mexican immigrants. And so what we're doing is we're trying to create coffee professionals, not just baristas, folks that will learn the history, the culture, the science of coffee, and learn how to grow within the industry. And if we can't grow quickly enough to provide them the opportunities to grow with us, that they can then take those skill sets and work for other companies that can provide, and so we're trying to kind of help in the diversity within the coffee industry. And so for us, it's hugely important. Also, even, you know, the flavors of coffee, like, one of the things that we do very much, you know, if you look at our branding, we're not overtly, Mexican or Latinx. We're not, you know, we don't have all the different colors, all the bright colors, which is, nothing wrong with that. But I think, you know, what we're trying to do is that, you know, the Latinx community is very diverse, right? But where we do show our identity is in the flavors of what we serve. You know, we're one of the first and few, coffee companies to really start selling café de olla, for example, and done the way it's supposed to, with the flavors and the recipe that my grandma used to use when she would make it for large gatherings. So, you know, stuff like that. Horchata, we use a cold brew with horchata flavor, you know, that's made naturally, vegan, the way it's supposed to be made, without any artificial flavoring. Those are things that we bring in into the market, and we're trying to not only sell at the coffee shop, and that's one of the things that makes us different, is that we're not just a coffee shop, that we're also selling to other coffee shops and restaurants, and very soon to many of your local grocery stores and supermarkets.
I love how you nonchalantly threw that at the end, just saying. But I know my colleague Kendra is so excited for that vegan option, and I can definitely testify to that café de olla, best I've had. So appreciate that. Thank you for all of that. Honestly, I think in this last answer, you really showcased how mission-driven your coffee shop is, and you see it throughout how you treat your employees and your customer base, and it's just incredible to see that, because not a lot of businesses do that. As I mentioned earlier, we're in the middle of a pandemic still. I'm sure you all kind of went through it in the beginning. I mean, the hearts of like mine and Kendra were really out there with our small business owners, talking day in and day out, like how can we get resources to them? And so we want to know, like, can you tell us a little bit about what was going through your head as you started to make plans to open up Back of the Yards, and how has the business evolved since opening and then reopening? I know you shared, how you're going to be out here distributing to the local grocery stores, but can you share a little bit more about how this has evolved?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic for us has been extremely tough. It's something that nobody in my lifetime, at least that I know of, had ever experienced. So even, having to go through this was really tough, because we couldn't go to anybody and say like, hey, how have you done, or how have you gone through this, and how have you survived, because it's totally new, right? And so we were observing, making decisions on the fly, but also paying attention to what was going on around us. And one of the things that we didn't want to do is we didn't want to close, and we didn't want to lay off any of our staffs. And so we had a conversation with them at the very beginning and said, look, what can we do? And so we decided to reduce the hours of operation, to reduce costs. But that also meant our employees also getting less hours. But the alternative would have been to lay them off, where they would have had to apply for unemployment. And as you can see, the line to getting that has been very, very, very long and difficult. So, they were trained, right? So we didn't want to get rid of someone and then have to kind of, risk that they might go somewhere else, and then have to retrain someone from the beginning. It's expensive. So, luckily, it worked out for us. The first 2 weeks, however, we lost about 75% of our income. Pretty much all of our wholesale accounts, were done, because nobody was ordering coffee. And so, at least not like at the restaurants, because, some of them were closing and some of them were operating at a very minimal, just like us. So that was very devastating. Luckily, we've applied to different grants and loans that have kept us aboard. The Together Now grant from the city of Chicago was one that we recently got that has helped us stay alive. And so all of these things, and also, the support from the community, we reached out to the community and said, hey, this is what's happening. And we even showed a video of, I drove by Cicero 47th and Cicero and Archer, and there's two, drive-through coffee companies there, which shall remain nameless, with lines, all onto Cicero. You had, each, it's the same company, literally 2 blocks away, with lines out the door of about 30 cars. And we just, we set it out there and we're like, look, the only way, if you love your community businesses, if you love your small businesses and you want them to continue to exist when this is over, then this is the time to support them. And that included us, and so we shared the video and said, hey, look, why wait in line over there when you can get better quality coffee with no line on 47th and Hoyne, And so we just had to be creative. And we're still not where we want to be. We're still not where we should be, but we're in a much better place than we were when this first started. And again, that's in many ways thanks to our community, to our supporters, people who believe in us and love our coffee, and also to those folks that are giving out grants and loans, and working with us to help get those.
Thank you for sharing. And I hope when we air the interview that people will be inspired, because we talked to so many business owners who unfortunately didn't get the loan or the grant, and people become discouraged. So to hear your story that you were able to receive funds from the city of Chicago. And then number 2, you really touched upon a key aspect, which is you had the community. You have people that are saying, you know what, we're going to support a business in our neighborhood because we want to see you successful and we want you to still be in our neighborhood. So this is one of the reasons why Jasmine and I love doing interviews with small business owners and communities, because you get a chance to learn, and we've learned so much about what your community has already done for you. So I think that's phenomenal. Now, when you think about coffee shops and the popularity of them, I know you've talked about that and how a lot of coffee shops are evolving, or some larger coffee chains are going into certain communities. Can you share with us what's your competitive advantage, or what sets Back of the Yards Coffee aside from the other competitors? Why would I come?
Sure. I think there are a couple of things. One is when we first opened our doors, or prior to actually open our doors, we had a lot of people, including ourselves, that doubted that, we never doubted that we were going to be successful. We just didn't know to what extent, right? And many folks were like, are you sure people in Back of the Yards are going to buy coffee? I think median income here, the last time I checked, was about $25,000 per household. So, when coffee companies are just, bigger chain restaurants, when they do their research and they're looking where to establish themselves, that's one of the key points that they look at is what is the median income and can they afford our coffee, right, or our product. And so for us, though, we felt like, well, we're from the community. And I think that's one of the advantages that we had, is that we know the community and we grew up drinking coffee. So we know we're drinking coffee. It's just, we just didn't have access to high quality coffee, right? And so that was one of those things. So we kind of already knew, so to speak, from talking to our friends and our neighbors and everybody, like, yeah, we all drink coffee, but we either have to, get stuck drinking low quality coffee, or B, travel longer distances to access that good coffee. And so that was one of the motivating factors. And when we opened and we saw the tremendous success that we had, we had a line out the door the first day that we opened. We had to cut it off at 3 because we were running out of stuff. Seeing that, we started doing more research and found that 90% of the coffee shops in the Chicago area are on the northeast side and downtown. Northeast side of Chicago and downtown. And so when we mapped that out with Latinx communities, there just weren't any coffee shops, right? And so we saw an opportunity there and said, like, we have the opportunity and also the knowledge of opening up in a community that are similar to Back of the Yards, because we know these communities, we're from there. And so just to give you an idea is, we're currently working on opening up our second location in Pilsen. And, yeah, and as you can imagine, Pilsen, has gone through, a lot in the last few years. A lot of gentrification has happened there, and people are not very trusting of companies, particularly in the food industry, coming in and doing the right thing, right? And so when we met with the developers who build it's called Mural Park, a new development in Pilsen, they came to us specifically because we were Latinx owned and because we're community based. They had other companies coffee companies go to them because they saw the opportunity of establishing themselves there in a space that nobody else would be, right? And so, but they were very adamant that they wanted someone like us because they didn't want any pushback from the community. But on our end, it felt like it was a good idea to do that because at the same time, we could continue the work and the values that we have working in back of the yards and do that in Pilsen by hiring local. We give back to the community. Proceeds from every sale of a coffee bag goes into a social impact fund that then funds programs that promote peace and education in the neighborhood. We will establish that as well in Pilsen from the sale of coffee bags in the Pilsen Coffee House. So, I mean, these are things that I think that's the advantage that we have of being able to open in communities that would, mostly be wary of companies coming in and establishing themselves, right? And because we do have those relationships in the community. The other thing is that we do is we hire locally, and our, the manager that we'll be hiring in Pilsen is going to be from Pilsen, someone who has relationships with the community and who can, be part of that. And we share our profits with that manager as well. So, so these shops are locally owned, right? And then on the other end too, the other advantage that we have is, as I mentioned earlier, we provide, coffee flavors that nobody else is doing, and I think that that's one of the things that stands us out from everyone is that we're doing café de olla the way café de olla is supposed to be made. We're doing, Mexican hot chocolate, from scratch, using cinnamon and chocolate, the way it's supposed to be made. And many of our stuff is either vegan or water-based, not because we're trying to be trendy or anything like that, but the reality is that's how it's supposed to be made. Milk and came from the Europeans brought it with them when they came to the Americas. So the Aztecs were making drinks with spices and all kinds of other styles. With chocolate, coffee also came through the Colombian exchange. But when it got to Mexico, we added cinnamon, we added all kinds of other spices and all different things, and that's what café de olla became. So it's really the knowledge of our food and our culture, and being able to do it in a respectful manner. And I think that's one thing that has helped us be competitive.
Wow, you see our reactions. We're just like in shock. I live in Pilsen, so that's why I was even more excited. But yes, around the corner for me. I want to thank you so much for joining us today and having this chat, letting us interview you, letting us promote your business so everyone knows. What an inspiration, right? Like you were able to take advantage of one of the funds from the city. You are talking about your competitive advantage and how you're so rooted in community, and that's so important here in Chicago. And I can't think of anything better to inspire, another small business owner. Like, yes, we're going through hard times, but like the community, if your business is socially conscious enough that is focusing on ensuring that you're also helping out the community and you're helping out your employees and you're hiring from within, you will be okay. And not only will you be okay, but you'll thrive. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I are really excited to have you here. And we look forward, to trying you out here in Pilsen when you're here.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it. And if nothing else, if I could share with other businesses, is just, to be resilient. That's one of the things about being an entrepreneur. It doesn't come easy. And our I guess our job title as an entrepreneur is to find solutions to problems, and it's like I said, it doesn't come easy, and it's something that's difficult, but somebody has to do it. And don't be afraid of failing. Failing is a privilege, to be honest. But if you can, don't be afraid of making those mistakes. And like with me, my first coffee business was failed, you know, but we wouldn't be where we're at. And Back of the Arts Coffee wouldn't exist without that failure. So try it. You know, it's okay to fail, but also, you know, write a good business plan. Make sure that you follow the ideas and that you stay focused on what it is that you want to do.